start, call this meeting to order. You've got,
It's recording. I have no one in the room.
no, nobody in the waiting room. Okay. Do you want to, call the roll call attendance?
Sure.
Kathy?
Scott, absent. Lee,
Present.
Margaret,
Present.
Diane is absent. Catherine,
Present.
Jerry is absent. Christina is absent, and Bonnie.
Here,
Mhm.
so we definitely have a quorum. A quorum is 4 people. Oh my gosh, we have exactly 4. So you want to need more people? We just made it. So the first piece of business probably is to elect officers and appoint alternates if we choose to do so tonight. So I don't know if anybody has any nomination for officers are a president and a chair and vice chair.
Just so no one thinks that I'm in favor or opposed to anyone, because I don't know the cast of characters. I'm going to stand by and not vote for or against any leadership. I need to learn a little bit more.
Agreed. All right,
So that'll be up to you, or, possibly keep the same leadership and wait until we have more members here. That's up to you folks, so, but I'm going to abstain.
all right. In that situation, the current offices remain until an election is held.
Which
Just
you
you
being
and
the
I.
chair and me being the vice chair at present, I would make a motion that we defer appointment of or election of officers until
And I would
other
second
board members
that.
are present.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
And the two current officers remain in office until.
Correct.
obviously,
So,
we have that election.
correct.
Okay, now do we need a motion for that?
I just made one.
You just made one, okay,
And I seconded it.
and you seconded it.
Yes.
Okay, any other thoughts, comments, nominations? All right, will you do the roll call of the vote?
Lee's
For that motion, I'm voting in favor of
Okay.
that particular motion.
and Margaret,
Yes.
Catherine,
Yes.
and Bonnie.
Yes. Okay. Do we want to, we had 2 people, run that, did not become elected, but are interested in being alternates, and that's Igor Billy and Jerry Mezzarino.
Yes.
Do we want to, appoint them as alternates?
I would like to do that. I'd make a motion for that. I think
Okay.
that if somebody stands up and runs,
Yep,
and then I think that's fantastic.
okay,
I'll
and
second that.
you second that? All right, any other, nominations for alternates at this time? Robert McAfee ran, but he, does not, want to be considered an alternate. And, we have one other person that has expressed an interest in being an alternate, which we don't have to do that tonight in the same motion. And that is, John Kane.
I think we should investigate whether he's still in.
Yeah, let's wait on that.
I have a couple of questions. How many alternates do we have?
We can have up to 5.
And do we post that we're looking for alternates?
Yes. And we
Where,
have,
because I looked and I could
we
not
have
find.
not right this minute, we haven't.
We should, if we're considering others than those that are in, even so, we should admit that we're looking for.
Right, right. We can have 5 alternates. We have 3 that have, we have a letter from John Payne expressing interest in being an alternate.
Right.
And we deferred that letter and didn't act upon that letter until after the election.
Mhm.
So we have 3
Yep.
that have come forward and shown interest.
Right.
So that's where that stands, but he isn't here. And I'm not sure 100%.
But I truly believe that we should post,
And we
Okay.
do, and we do.
because I couldn't find any posting for.
The posting would be just prior to the election. It would have been in March. It would have been, December, January, February, and that time period. We had it on the posted.
But maybe we can do it again for,
Yeah.
good.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, any other nominations at this time? You want to do the roll call on the nominations?
Okay, Margaret,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes,
Catherine,
Yes.
and Bonnie.
Yes. Welcome aboard, Igor. You want to join us at the table?
good.
And does anybody want to make Igor a voting member since?
I will make the motion to have Igor a voting member.
I second.
Okay. You want to do the roll call on that?
Okay, Lee,
Yes,
Margaret,
Yes.
Catherine,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes. Okay, welcome aboard, Igor.
thank you.
And I know Jerry, did we know whether Jerry was coming tonight? I guess not.
I didn't hear any.
I didn't hear one of that. We will, when he comes the next time, we will, we'll let him know that he was nominated and all that. Okay, we have no, selectmen's report. Scott Rice had a, family matter come up, so he couldn't make it. Approval of the minutes. And there again, we've got.
I've got to abstain, I
We've
wasn't
got
here.
only two people, but that's okay, we have a quorum here,
Right, but I can't.
but two does not make a affirmative vote out of four.
No.
No.
Let's defer this.
So we have to the approval of the minutes until the next meeting. The meetings are always, and we might as well talk about that now, the meetings have traditionally always been on the second Monday at 6. Scott Rice pointed out this evening and asked me to bring the topic up. Do we want to consider meeting earlier than 6?
I am all for that.
And so, that would be sort of, how does that go for you? Is earlier easier for you or not?
For me, quite a bit earlier is actually the easiest. Because this time of the evening is, my mother is getting older and needing more and more care. So the later the meeting goes into the evening, the trickier it is for me.
All right, what do the rest of you think?
I can go as early as 4, but before that, it's going to conflict with a lot of my work meetings.
Okay. And you're,
I'm good, or at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. As the day gets longer, my mind gets fuzzier.
Igor, what do you think about 4, 5, or 6?
I'm fine, 4 o'clock is fine with those, 5, 6, 4, too close for you?
No, I can work it. I can work 4.
4
So,
o'clock works for me.
Does that work for it historically for the general
For
public
people.
that would want to come in?
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
that's
Not
the thing. Yeah,
that
What,
that would be the issue.
has always been my thought until just very recently. It is a yeoman's job to be here for 6 because I was coming out of Concord and or a meeting anyway, 6 was like 6 is perfect.
I think
My
that
vote is 6 is
participation of
wonderful.
the general public
Yeah.
is critical to the planning board purpose. So
6 is fabulous as far as I'm concerned. 5, I would do it if, and I would do it. Why don't we defer that? Let's get some more opinions because there's other members that might have.
and I would imagine 5 would even cut into folks' ability to be able to make it to the meeting.
yeah, that's understandable.
Um,
Being selfish, though, I mean, For me, earlier works, but for the public.
I know almost all meetings have gone to 5, like the selectmen and other groups and school boards and things. Everybody is pushing it earlier and earlier. When I was a selectman, it was 8 o'clock. When I was on the budget committee, it was 7:30. You know, that's going back a ways, of course. And then, so we chose the 6 earlier. But not, so let's not make any choice about that, right at the moment. And let's get the other opinions, because we certainly wouldn't want to make it impossible.
Exactly.
Correct.
Totally impossible for one of the members. Okay. And I can tell Scott I brought it up and it's under consideration. Next on the agenda is the master plan subcommittee update. We've been meeting, we've had about 3 meetings and they're very open to the public, very informative. Everybody can say whatever they want, bring up whatever topic they want. And we've had, I believe, 3. And basically just reported them out as like bullet points. You know, no votes taken or anything. Obviously, the goal is to have a subcommittee that is looking at our visions, where we want to be in 5 years, 10 years, and to try to gather some ideas in a smaller group than take up our board time, or all 7 of us, or even 4 of us have to get together in order to have a meeting to discuss it. A subcommittee, there are no quorum requirements or this and so forth. So it's worked very well, very, very well. The chief of police is terribly interested in it. He comes and gives his input. We have Jackie Wilson. We have, and you're interested.
Yes.
You're going to join the group. Igor became interested in it before even becoming an alternate. Each meeting has had different folks show up and express their thoughts. And basically, we are the planners for the town. We're the ones that are supposed to worry about this. But we can't do it in a vacuum. It's got to be what the citizens want and need. What do they want the town to look like? What kind of quality of life do they want? What are they thinking for our future? So we're in the gathering information mode, just gathering thoughts.
Are there permanent members of the subcommittee or defined members, or is it loose and it's just whoever shows up?
It started out initially as a defined subgroup of this group, Christina and myself. That was meeting number 1. We broke up into subcommittee. We had a subcommittee working on the subdivision regulations. We had one working on the floodplain. We had one working on the master plan or the vision. So there was 6 of us and 3 committees, 2 apiece. So we started there and generated some ideas and kind of put together maybe like a template, you know, and kind of decided, well, we need to look at where we're at and what are our attributes and what do we have, and what are our resources, what are some opportunities, where would we like to go, what are some visions for the future.
So the current master plan was adopted in 2021.
Yes.
What is the goal of the subcommittee to have a new master plan available for vote? Because that's what I'm assuming that the master plan committee.
And it's it would be a vote of this board, the planning board. It doesn't go to town meeting.
The master plan does not go to town. Okay.
It's our plan. So it would be a vote of the entire board.
And what is the target for the subcommittee?
We don't have we're in the idea generating stage right now.
Mhm.
And we've identified some things that we absolutely have to have.
Mhm.
And they're kind of in progress, like the selectmen are looking at the water and sewer and,
Mhm.
capacities and infrastructure. That's information we need. We've identified we need that.
Mhm.
We've identified that we need a visual to show folks
Mhm.
that we need a vision, we need out what that vision might look like. And have a little bit of marketing, or a little bit of like Franklin did, for instance. They've got visuals, they got a slideshow
Mhm.
showing what we're thinking of.
Mhm.
And to bring forward so the public can even see it. We identified some things that are terribly important to people, like housing, like infrastructure, like activities, recreational activities and things to do. We've identified, 6 or 8 categories that are important. And they're all interconnected. So we've gotten that far with just the people that show up from the public, giving us ideas. We've gotten that far. I would say, ideally, and an important thing is, we kind of decided we need an accomplishment we can easily accomplish.
Right.
We need
Right, define
something we
attainable
can
goals, right.
do
Mhm.
to prove that we are gonna amount to something. We need to identify something doable, visual and doable that we can accomplish in the short term while we work on the long term. I think we all feel like sooner is better than later, because a lot is happening. The growth is happening, and we want to be proactive, not reactive. I'm just throwing out some buzzwords that people have said. We want to be proactive. We want a plan that maybe guides some of the things that might happen. At least
How
set
does
some
this
goals.
plan turn into the financing of the plan?
We have no financing mechanism. We don't have any money budget.
So as part of the development of the master plan to develop a performer or that goes with it?
That would go before the town for a vote, is that what you're
Yes.
saying? Yeah.
If it could lead, it could become the beginning of a capital improvement program.
Okay.
That's what it's going. You're gonna set priorities.
If you're planning a short-term goal, I'm assuming there'll be a cost associated with the short-term goal. And I wasn't sure if that was something that you vote on amongst yourself, if you had some sort of budget for that, or if this is a reach out to another group within the town to get funding to
And
hit that milestone.
and that might happen.
Okay.
That might happen. I mean, we hope that the Chamber of Commerce
Mhm.
likes this idea and has some thoughts and ideas. So we just started, when did we have our first meeting? Oh, it was 3 months ago. Oh, here comes one of the key members of the group.
Well, I don't know about that.
Oh, he is.
I just have an interest.
He is. So you see how it's growing, and you have someone else that wants to join us, and one person is bringing another. Jackie suggested Brian, and it's just growing. It's like everybody is excited about this, and everybody wants to be involved and become part of it. So you can't have too many. So anybody that's shown interest, we pass the word to those folks to tell them about the next meeting. And okay, we're gonna choose when our next meeting is tonight. Find out a time when a bunch of us can meet. So it's in the very beginning stages, but we're growing.
I think you're right to define attainable goals at the beginning, because otherwise it's just, you end up just spinning your wheels.
This is not going to be go to a, what do you call it? You go to a brainstorming session and nothing happens, the document goes on a shelf and
Right.
nobody looks at it. This is building excitement. People are excited about this.
great.
And happy to come give their ideas and think about it. So, and board members can, sit in on it. It's not required, but anybody that's interested, be it a board member or even somebody from out of town.
Good.
Okay. So, that's it in a nutshell. That's in a nutshell. When do we think we want to meet again? And we're trying to meet, we were meeting almost weekly, I mean, you know, the 3 meetings we had at a fast clip. And I don't know that we can maintain that forever, but certainly I think a lot of us would love to see a couple times a month. Keep it moving, keep it moving. Or else it'll just, we won't get very far. There's a lot of ground to cover. So, when do we want to meet again? I mean, this group as a board doesn't have to decide, but it's maybe a good place to get some ideas. Did you have something you wanted to say on it? Is this why you were here, this topic?
Well, I've done a ton of research on how people are going about creating affordable housing
Mm-hmm,
in kind of vacation-esque communities,
mm-hmm.
because the housing becomes very expensive. And I'm assuming this is not the correct meeting for it, but one of those other meetings to break that up, there's a lot of information on how do you create a price to rent a unit, but create a benefit to a local employee so it becomes affordable. So you're not discriminating against anybody renting it, but you're allowing your community members to be able to rent it at a much more affordable rate.
Right,
And still be able to create something that's profitable enough that you have investors that find positives in investing in it, especially larger local businesses who then get long-term employment out of it, because if you're employed by said business and you're getting a 30% discount on your rent, you're going to want to continue to get that $400 or $500 a month off in rental discount in order to, so you're going to want to stay employed, happily employed, not working quite so difficult. So I'm also working with a group out of Lincoln that's doing housing,
mm-hmm,
and trying to create a useful combination of a nonprofit with an L3C, which is not adopted to New Hampshire yet, but it's basically the same as a limited liability, but allows donations. So by doing that, you're allowing donations back to a nonprofit, which is then giving the rental credit to the in-town employees. But that L3C is a pass-through, just like an LLC is. So the investors, larger businesses, are then getting major tax benefits constantly throughout the entire time frame that they're have ownership. Plus, they're making a smaller amount than they would off of a regular rental unit, but they're getting those tax benefits as well, and they're helping their community.
mm-hmm.
What's the name of the company that you work for?
I don't work for a company. It's all done on my own.
Yeah.
I've researched a couple of companies, one that's out of Northern California, one that's out of Texas, one that's out of Florida. But I've been working with Jack Daly for the Lincoln Group that's trying to put some stuff together. The head of Loon, Brian, is part of that group. And we're trying to create ways of not only putting housing up that people are paying less than 30% of their paycheck towards said housing. They're not having to pay 55, 60% like some people are paying right now,
Right,
just to be able to live within a
I
half an
saw
hour
that
of work.
explosion happened down on the Cape where we couldn't have, there weren't any people to work because no one could afford to live there. And I actually have been discussing this, actually, we discussed it on the way up, and I was also talking with my sister about how I see that same thing happening here now.
Actually, Amtrak out of Massachusetts has approached me about this idea as well. So
So you're a consultant, what's your name?
my name is Brian Klaus.
Okay.
I'm actually one of the head chefs of the Common Man. But I'm an electrical engineer and a business degree out of college. I just didn't like.
You're the
being-
Brian that Jackie
Yep.
told us about.
Uh-huh. So,
And, you
There's a
know,
lot of information there and I don't want to get into all of it, but
Thank
and
you.
this subcommittee is also keeping track of all of the developments going around. In fact, we're looking into making a map, overlays, and we have found out that is absolutely feasible to have the tax maps, have overlays. And there's an awful lot of interest in having an overlay. Okay, here's the existing houses, here's where they are. You know, here's the existing sewer, here's the existing water. Here's a bunch of overlays, so we can take the town maps. We need visuals. I said earlier, we need visuals. We need some nice glossy, beautiful looking main streets like Franklin has put together, how it
Seems like
could look.
GIS, that it should be pretty easy
It
too.
it is. It's very, that was Robert McAfee's real interest and contribution to the committee. To make us realize that we need to see it. We need to see where is the current housing, the different types. And where are the opportunities for more housing or businesses or anything, anything you can name. We're going to need to map it out. We're going to need that. And keep track of the things that are going on. Right now, we have 3 that I'm aware of, 3 affordable housing opportunities being built, right while we sit right here, that we have nothing to do with. You know, they're happening, it's happening, plus there's 2 buildings that I'm aware of that have been brought up for employee housing. So it's happening. I mean, it's not going to have to be us, you know, us find the money and create it. It's happening. So somehow we need to keep track of what's going on and where there are other opportunities or where there's, you know, a greater need. And that goes for recreational and activities too. We talked about there isn't enough people to do. We don't have enough activities and recreational things. We've got a lot of forests and hiking trails, but we've got 1 ice castle and 1 racetrack. And Lost River Reservation. We don't have. So, you know, it kind of behooves us to keep track of what we have. What is our inventory now and what do we need? And we don't have zoning. We do not have the ability to make a decision where any of these things we think might be good should or could be located because we have no zoning. It's all 1 zone. So we can't get involved in that, but we certainly, as planners, can say, maybe we could use some more things for families to do at night, or gee, we could use more shopping, or whatever it is, more things to do. Somebody mentioned a bowling alley. That's a fashion idea. I don't know if bowling's come and gone, but anyway, the things to do. And we've got the skate park is coming to Lincoln. And we're right next to Lincoln, so you have to look at the whole, a bigger picture also. Right? Of what the region is doing, not just selfishly what we're doing over here. It needs to be a regional approach. So that's enough probably time taken up in this meeting, certainly come to the subcommittee meeting. It's open to the public. The
Is there-
notices, it's Zoom,
Is there an email sign up for that to get a reminder? when this
yes.
happens?
If there's a sign up sheet here,
I'll put my email address on it.
yeah. Anybody that's interested in knowing more about it or wanting to participate, get on the sign up sheet with the email. And we're looking at those. And when we decide to have another one, we just send out to anybody that showed interest the last few times and invite them.
I would suggest that the subcommittee make their schedule as opposed to this committee, because it should be the people who are actually going to participate.
That's a lot of times.
It does, it does, but that's Christina, who is, hiking the trail. And not available to participate,
Mhm.
in the near future. So
Just
we could,
one person's thought, that's all.
yeah, now, are you guys interested in attending?
I'm
that?
not sure, depending on what the schedules are, if I can
Okay.
commit that amount of
All right.
time.
All right, are you interested?
It depends on when it is.
When it is,
Yeah.
okay. So we'll come up with something, we'll come up with another meeting. It's got to avoid the selectmen's meeting and other things on the agenda. We've been using other Mondays, like, we used the second Monday for this. So we've been using up the other Mondays, is what we've been doing. So we'll, come up with something. And in the packet is the, a draft of the last, subcommittee minutes and a brochure on, Plan New Hampshire Community Design Direct Program.
Yep.
They can be of help to the group.
And there's copies.
And there's copies there, anybody in the audience or whatever. Correspondence received. There is a DOT informational meeting, April 12th at 5 o'clock. The DOT is hosting it, but it's of interest to us. And it concerns the Green Bridge. So DOT is coming here, April 12th, 5 o'clock. In keeping with what's going on, planning board members can go if they're available. We're going to have a hearing next time on the Vertex Cell Tower special use permit waiver, that big package. They're having a visual demonstration that some of us will want to try to see. And that's on April 25th, 9 AM to noon. The last time they had one, it never got built, but we did permit a tower in the same general area. We permitted one previously. I rode up and down the road and tried to find a room. And so came to the conclusion it wasn't a terribly intrusive of like, could hardly see it, so. But it's of interest and something that a planning board member should do before the hearing. See just how high up the tower is gonna stick in the air, and they float one at the elevation the tower is going to stand. So if you have a chance to ride up and down the road, see if you can see it.
I have a couple of generic power questions.
Yes,
Probably more ordinance questions. From taxation perspective, is it the cell tower owner that pays the property taxes on the tower, or is it the real estate owner that the taxes on?
I think we've seen both. I think we've seen landowners own the tower. A prime
Right.
example of that is O'Donoghue's, for instance.
Yeah.
They own the tower, so they pay the taxes and they collect the rent.
So,
Other cases, it's a lease situation.
right,
One of the big companies, one of the big cell tower type companies comes in and talks to somebody and say, will you lease me a spot?
mhm,
And it will always be on private property, because forget about getting the permits and everything to be on the national forest. They give up on that. So almost always, it will be, they've got to find a place to lease, they find the spot. And,
Well, isn't that always that the property owner is taxed on whatever is on his property? So if I put up 10-unit building on my property, I'm being taxed on a 10-unit building. If I put up cell tower, I'm taxed on a cell tower. And then I have to make sure that my rent, my lease covers the expense. So the property owner is taxed on the improvement, you taxed on the land and the improvement.
I actually looked up one of the towers that I'm familiar with, it's at the end of our road, and it does look like the tenant is paying the taxes directly, not the property owner. But I'm going in a direction on this. I'm more interested in the telecommunication ordinance that says if a tower's been abandoned for.
That's gotta
like,
come down.
Yeah, that's, okay, it's gotta come down.
It's gotta
And
come
it said, and what it says is that the owner of the tower or the landowner
Right.
will be charged. Well, when I go back to the idea of taxation is a lien. Okay, and the town has a legal lien, just because it says that the town is gonna try to recover money from either the company, if the company goes bankrupt, they're done. And it still has to come down. Shouldn't the ordinance be a little bit more specific that it is a lien upon the property with
think
property taxes,
Right.
like what you're saying,
Right.
yeah.
I think we have a few different, you know, types of ownership going on here. We got, I mean, I know we have people paying, a lease on the land. But they own the tower and they're getting a tax bill on the tower and getting all the income off of it. And they just owe the landowner X dollars to lease the land.
But when it's time for it to come down, and let's say it's a windmill, but we don't
Right.
have any, but in the future, if we have windmill, who will be responsible for decommissioning these? You know, who is responsible for this? And just because our ordinance says the landowner or the company will pay, if everybody's bankrupt, we're gonna pay. So there should be some lien.
I think when we wrote that ordinance, I think we thought that through. I mean, good point. Let's check and see
Yeah,
what
it's-
our ordinance
But
says.
if the shape on the screen, this is where, the proposed tower.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about this tower, I'm talking generality, so
Right.
that's for the public hearing.
Be included into
Okay.
the record for anybody that wants to know.
Alright, so this
Want to go on.
Yeah, so anyway, those are the questions in general.
We'll look into that. I think covered it, so I
Okay.
think we did, but I'm not 1,000% sure. And that's an ordinance that has a little bit of age on it.
Right,
I do know we had to update it. And because the federal law changed and we cannot. Be an obstructionist to
I didn't know that
emergency
as well, yes.
services. You know, these towers are serving a public emergency service need and function. And we can't unjustly say no,
Not interested in
because
saying no at all.
it's serving
I
a
got my
public,
phone right here.
it's serving a public purpose. But we still have an ordinance and we still have a right to look at its location, look at an enclosure around it, you know, and a road, a decent road to get to it, to maintain it. Our ordinance still lets us have an awful lot of say and how tall it can be. And that's why they're asking for a waiver. We have an awful lot of say about its location and construction materials, glare, you know,
Oh,
lights, whether it blends in with the scenery or it's an awful glare to planes going over or whatever, you know, so that will be, read the ordinance, read
yeah, I
read
read it, no
the
worries.
application.
Yep.
And for the public's input, we will be having a hearing on it next time. And anybody go to the visual demonstration, which is going to occur on April 25th. The next meeting is May 8th, yeah, after the visual inspection. Anybody going to the
That's
spring
a-
conference?
Tuesday.
Anybody
I'm
can,
not able to.
and it's nowhere near as fun because it's, you don't go to a conference, you're watching it on your TV. And you can see it, or your computer, you can see it at a later date. You can't, view it on that Saturday that it's being held live. I'm sure there's access to it, later. It's not mandatory to go, but it's good information. That's all the correspondence per se. Other business, Scott has been telling us there'll be an opportunity for us to learn about the infrastructure that we have. And the meetings that he has been alluding to are occurring on April 18th. One at 4:45, the other one at 5, I guess. And the selectmen are suggesting that's a good place for us to go to become informed, ask questions. They're trying to apply for some grants. So if anybody can make it, that would be good.
With April 18th.
April 18th, 4:45 here. The other meeting is April 12th, the DOT Greenbridge. And the site, the visual for the tower is April 25th. This is unusual for us to have so many extra meetings that are of interest to us, but. I think that's about all I had. At the foot of the table, there's a list of all of us and our phone numbers, email, something. The email might be good to have. Does any of the boards have anything before I open it for public participation? Anything to bring up?
I participated in the flood time training on April 4th.
Oh, good.
And some interesting information that came out of that. A number of the panel members were recommending that in developing floodplain ordinances and in putting them into practice, that planning boards work with other town boards. And they had said that what was most effective for them in helping to keep things applied equally throughout the town and also to reduce costs was to have all of the boards that were affected by floodplain regulations meeting together on a periodic basis. And so that might be something that we could investigate going forward as we start looking
Yeah.
into how we can become certified.
Certainly could look into that, Thornton and Lincoln.
I've already exchanged some correspondence with the Conservation Commission and they're definitely interested.
And I suggested to Scott, as we're moving forward into a busy time, that we gotta make sure the Conservation Commission, Planning Board, and Selectmen are communicating. Almost like in a monthly meeting or something, so that because we all have knowledge, the Conservation Commission knows some things go on. Selectmen know some, we know some. We should be sharing all that information. Doing our job independently, we all have a responsibility to look at it differently. And there may be different votes involved, but we need to know what the other groups know. Because we're getting into critical times.
Well, it's interesting. We have Scott Rice, who's the selectman's representative. It would be nice to have a conservation commission representative that's here on a regular basis, because then that would take care of getting the information from those boards to us.
It's probably right about now possible, boy, oh boy, we haven't had a conservation commission, but now we have two people that seem to be really on top of it.
Yeah, town meeting, it's sounded that they were very interested, right? So,
We have two people that really know this stuff and are really dedicated to it. That hasn't been the case. I mean, that town meeting was the first time I've ever heard of anybody enthusiastically talking about conservation commission stuff. So it's really right, and they can have a position on this board. They can be a they can they can attend and be involved.
Be nice if one of them was an alternate.
Got to think about whether they can be.
We used to have a representative from the conservation.
We had at one time. I think they can. I'm not 1,000% positive, but I think they can. There's no conflict of interest there, I do not believe. I think they can.
Or is there something like advisory position?
I think it would be the same thing as.
As
the select board
select
has
I think it can be. I,
Like the advisory position?
I,
No, it's not
write
advisory
that
board.
down, write that down, Kathy, and let's figure that out and invite one of them to become involved with us.
Good.
And be part of us. We haven't had that opportunity since, Mrs. Frost, who lived on Merrill Lake Road years ago. She was young, she was very, very into it. And once or twice else we had somebody that really, and who was that? Paul Carolyn was very into it. And you realize they have a lot of clout. The Conservation Commission has standing at the Wetlands Board, for instance. They will ask, they will call, notify the Conservation Commission in the town when they have a wetlands application before them. They have representation of Conservation Commissions on their board. So they definitely have, they're listened to by DES. We can write them a letter, and no, that's a nice letter, but they have standing when it comes to environmental stuff on the state level. So all the more reason we want to coordinate and know what they're doing or what they're concerned about. All right, public participation. Anybody have anything you want to say?
Everybody's looking at it.
Sid?
I think if I had to guess, Bonnie wants me to talk about some of the topics we covered.
Yes, go ahead, go for it.
Well, so the police department is neutral and detached in every aspect. If the town were to grow, the police department can grow. If it stays the same, so does the police department. It's not an issue. Personally, my interest is in our downtown. We have folks, residents living in commercial properties. And that's taken away from commercial business opportunities. Another one is the mobile station. That mobile station is vacant. And it's taken away from the beauty of our downtown. One of the things that I suggested to Bonnie, I shared with her the revitalization project for Franklin. And there's a rendering out, some news coverage and such, and pretty exciting stuff. And it really isn't even underway yet. But there's a lot of folks that moved into that area and seized opportunities to get in on the ground floor and get in at a very cheap rate. And so you'll look, if you go down to Franklin today, that city's already turning itself around before that project has gotten off the ground. And we might be able to do just that by putting out a rendering of what you anticipate our downtown to look like if we were to implement all the things that we discussed in these meetings. A lot of folks who may be investing in Lincoln, one construction company in general, they're finding themselves kind of forced out to some degree, and they're going to land here in Woodstock. There's that overflow that Bonnie was talking about some time ago, and it is occurring. There's limited places where folks can go and I guess take up a foothold in Lincoln, and so the natural second choice to the town of Woodstock. And I think that if we are responding, if we're always responding to new development or new ideas or change, we're behind the curve. So where we've talked, I guess in the past meeting I wasn't here for, we talked about running sewer and water down Route 3. Maybe that's in advance of the next project to encourage the next project to come in. Every time I turn around, somebody is giving me new information regarding a piece of property that might be for sale. For instance, it's just a rumor, but it was from the property owner himself talking about selling his property to the National Guard Armory. And they've already looked at the property and they like it. Well, when I had a conversation with Bonnie, she makes a very good point. She says, you know what? There is no taxable income from a National Guard Armory. Even though it may clean up that property and make that area look nicer. Is that in our best interest? I don't know. Again, we're neutral and detached, but personally, I would like to see Lincoln and Woodstock work together. So that we're not just a residential community or suburb to Lincoln. I'll give you one more point we discussed. I think Brian and I had a conversation a few weeks back. These different entities are being purchased up as residential opportunities for J1 visa holders. Those are the worker bees that we're bringing in to work in hotels and such. And at a younger age, I worked in the town of Lincoln and I dealt with J1 visa holders. And they came here for, the opportunity to work, but they're exploring this area. They're having fun. This is a vacation for them. So alcohol, drugs, sexual assault, all of those things are very real. And as we get more and more of these folks that are residents in our town, we're probably dealing with more problems, more domestic issues. I don't know if our taxable income is that great by being the bedroom community to Lincoln. I guess ultimately it's whatever the board or the town decides, whatever they want to do. And the reason I have interest is I just want to take the temperature of the room out. I would like to see where our residents want our town to go. And I think, was it through 2 weeks ago, we decided, or it was said that, and I think you wrote it down, Bonnie. I can't remember.
I
the
did, I've
exact
got all the bullet points made are written down on a piece of paper,
We
yeah.
somehow wanted to remain a quaint New England vacation destination. Well, that would limit growth. That would prevent Walmart from landing somewhere close by. If we're gonna be a quaint New England vacation destination.
Yeah, the word quaint was kind of poo-pooed in some of the discussions, because we're not gonna be quaint.
Well, it would imply that we're going to keep out the ice castles for big business, large housing projects.
I did something that really, it just was a coincidence. I was in the bank and in came, a bunch of young folks. And, they were all going up to the tellers and taking out their money, their hard-earned money that they had made to bring back to whatever country that they came from. And it was thousands, each one of those young folks were going home with thousands of dollars that was not going to be spent and invested in our community. If we could only attract workers and folks that would go somewhere and work hard and spend the money here. But I witnessed, it was just like, oh my gosh. Oh
Let
my
me
gosh.
interject for just a moment. A lot of the experience I've had is with folks from, say, Estonia. Their living conditions are not unlike our own. They're not impoverished, or if you've got yourself the opportunity to come here, whether it be from South America or say Estonia, it's more of an experience. I got to travel at a young age and see all of Europe. If I had decided to work there, I could have. I think a lot of these folks are here for the experience. I know the story of your impoverished, like, third world country is that they come here and they work on the farms. They take all that money and they store it up and they send it home. And they try to get their family members over here. So there are multiple different stories.
you know, I just, I was happy for them and wished them all well on their journey home and all this. But, you know, half of me wished it was some young folks here, enjoying our community, having that good fortune. To have done well, and it wasn't, they weren't walking out of there with $1,000. It was several thousands that exited out of our community that could have helped our economy here. So that was just an observation. Anybody else have anything else that to come before the order? Do we have anything? All right, well, if it's stay tuned, we're gonna have some interesting discussion groups. And Lee, I don't think any one of us want this to take forever. You know, we do want a vision statement, and we do want a plan before it's too late, before everything has happened. So I think the onus is on us to diligently gather information, study this, and come to some conclusions, you know, I don't know, by the fall or something.
Right.
You know, not a 3-year study. All right, anything else? Anybody?
I want to go back to what you were just saying about, you know, the kids taking their money out. And I've seen that a lot when I was down on the Cape. And the issue is a lot of time when you have businesses that are very seasonal, it's very hard to attract young folks from the area because their work season is truncated and they don't have the 365-day work. And it's trying to find that kind of balance. And I remember working to try to make a community that was very busy down there only in the summer have opportunities in the winter as well, which is driving up what you were saying is the things to do.
Yeah.
So you have to have the things to do in the shoulder season and in the off seasons to be able to employ those folks so that there's constant money coming in. But anytime you have a vacation community, there's gonna be people that are working for the season and they're booking, whether they're from this area, whether they're from another country or from Boston or from wherever they've come from for the season. But it ties into having the opportunities year round as opposed to just on the prime season.
This used to be a 2-season area.
Yeah.
You had a good winter season and a good summer season. And folks really welcomed the 2 months off in the spring and the fall. They look forward to it. Boy, they took time off. They worked like the dickens in the summer and winter. And that used to be a culture that worked well for families, that they would capitalize upon the 2 seasons.
Right.
And there was enough for them to do. Skiing, obviously, if you're interested, snowmobiling, if you're interested, certain activities, if you're interested in, that keeps you busy for activities and a quality of life. But, you know, I think at some of the meetings, people were saying we need other activities or recreational opportunities for folks that don't ski or don't hike.
You know, I don't necessarily lament the people who are taking their money out and go back to whatever country they're going back to. I think that shows that there is a lot of people spending money here.
Yeah.
And that's a great thing already. And we have to be careful about sticking our noses where it doesn't belong, because there's sometimes that's a good thing,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Yeah, there are only so many kids that age that live in town. That's the thing.
Correct.
And also, if I may, I mean, most of these kids, they come here for 3 months.
Yes.
Yes.
3 months, they work 15, 16 hours a
right.
day because they know they start on June 15.
Yeah.
They end on September 15. By September 15, they
Yeah.
gone, they're tired,
Yeah.
but they have.
Yes.
And from my experience, the J1s, they already paid a lot of money to get here on J1 because they're paying for the agency that supplied the J1. They paid for their flight ticket.
Yeah.
So yeah, they may have taken out $5,000-6,000, but already their cost was
Yeah.
$3,000
Yeah.
just to get here.
And they experienced,
So, and
America, they experienced a small town, yeah.
And you need the help. That's.
I get it.
right down to
Yeah.
that.
I get it, it just seemed like years ago. There weren't the jobs for them, the locals somehow, there were enough locals, residents around. That needed those jobs, wanted those jobs and depended upon.
There's a lot more business now, though.
Maybe, that
You
could
know,
be,
there's a lot more establishments
be.
that need to be supported.
Kevin,
Totally off topic and changing direction because, talking about things that have been is a waste of time. We're thinking about things that could happen.
right,
And one of the ideas that I heard recently, and the best thing that I can do for the board is to share the ideas that I've heard. Maybe some of you folks maybe have heard this or not, but years ago, there was a rumor that the Owl's Nest Golf Course was going to partner with an indoor water park. And the idea is you don't want to take your family on vacation to go play golf. They don't play golf. They don't want to go. But the kids do want to go to an indoor water park while you play golf. Rain or shine, they get the opportunity to do that. And I think Jay Peak is one of those
Yeah.
places, Great Wolf Lodge, I think is
Yeah.
another one.
yeah,
Something similar to that would probably be a no-brainer and eventually come up on the docket. Where this town has an abundance of water. If planning board wanted to entice an opportunity of that nature and design a place where that could occur somewhere, agreeable to the town or out of sight. Those are the out-of-the-box opportunities that I think would be available to us. But
Yeah.
there's many more. I don't know all of them. The charrette program, I don't know much about it, but Campton had employed those folks to come down and beautify their downtown and see if they couldn't get some benefit. And I don't know if it's gonna work for us or not. I'd like to look into it too. But there are all these out-of-the-box ideas that we should be seeing how other towns are doing it, and then like the one we like the best, try to employ it and make it our own.
and, municipalities can. Have ownership in or get involved in. Or form a nonprofit or whatever, promote something. All right, anything else for the good of the order? Okay, does anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
I will make that motion.
All right, second. I haven't ever heard anybody say they don't want to leave. We're adjourned. Whoop.
Yeah.
I don't-
Right on time.
So,